In this video, we will go over the software that comes with Sono, the Two Notes Torpedo Remote, and for users wanting to get more control over routing, the Sono Mixer app. Unless specified, both these applications work in exactly the same way on both Mac and Windows machines. So let's get started with the Torpedo Remote application. So this is what is used to control the cabinet simulation that is built into Sono. It is purely a control software for the DSP in the Sono unit, so it doesn't actually process any audio itself, and therefore doesn't take up any precious CPU power on your computer. It doesn't actually even need to be running on your computer to get a sound out of Sono, seeing as all the cab simulation is built in. When you open the Torpedo Remote, providing that Sono is plugged in and switched on, the first screen you'll see is the arcade window. This is where you'll make all of the changes to the sound, which you can then store on Sono as presets. Let's take a look at each of the elements on the screen. Probably the first thing you'll want to do is pick the cab you want to use. So use this drop-down menu and select the cab. Then it should appear in the window. To make it easier to navigate, you can also use these filter buttons to filter between the cabs in the Two Notes store, the ones available in your account, which includes the 20 that come with the unit, and ones on Sono itself. If you select a cab you don't own, you can still try it and use it, but there will be a few seconds of silence inserted every 30 seconds until you purchase it. If you decide you want to purchase it, you can click the shopping cart button to open the Two Notes store. When selecting different cabs, you may notice a couple of seconds of silence as the cab loads. This is the computer sending the cabinet data across to the unit. If you have a set of cabs that you commonly switch between, you can actually store up to 8 on the unit, which means you can completely get rid of this loading time. To store a cab, you can press the icon on the right-hand side, or alternatively, you can go to the Cabinet Manager menu, which will let you drag cabs on and off Sono. Whether you actively store the cabs on Sono or just select them from the computer and load them in each time, Sono will always be running the emulation on its internal DSP, meaning you will always be getting low latency playback of your guitar or bass. Once you've selected a cab, you can adjust the type of microphone used to virtually mic it up, using these arrows. Different mics are available depending on the cab you've selected, but you will generally have access to a number of different ones, including dynamics, condensers, and ribbons, a selection of some of the common mics you would normally find in a studio for recording cabs. All the mics will bring out different characteristics in the cab, so it's definitely worth experimenting to see what works best for the particular cab you've chosen, but also for your playing style. To make the cab sound even more realistic, you can then adjust the room that the cab and the mic are in, from smaller studios all the way up to a large cathedral. Then control how much of the room's ambience you can hear by adjusting the distance of the mic from the cab using this control here on the left, going from adding a bit of room ambience in maybe one of the smaller rooms to a fully fledged reverb when in one of the larger rooms. You're able to shape your overall tone in the effects rack on the left, starting with the power amp. This is where you can bring in some really nice crunch to your sound, but this is actually controlled using the drive knob on the Sono unit. While you already have EQ controls on Sono itself, you do also have some extra controls in the Torpedo Remote as well. Firstly, you have the tone control, which lets you move between a darker and a brighter sound. Then you have the contour control, which lets you change from a vintage type sound to a modern type sound, which is essentially moving between an emphasized mid frequencies with vintage and a more scooped mid sound with emphasis on the bass and treble with modern. Finally, you have the preset and output level. The preset level allows you to balance the current settings with other presets on the unit, and the output level lets you dial back the overall level if you find yourself clipping in your audio software when you're trying to record. Once you're completely happy with the sound you've made, it'd be a good idea to save it as a preset. Simply hit the save button at the top and then choose where you want to save. You can save the preset onto Sono directly, meaning that the preset will be recallable in one of the 3 preset slots and available at any time, even if you don't have the computer connected. You can also save it directly to your computer, letting you build your own library of tones. To change between the presets on Sono, you just have to press the cab button to toggle through them, and then all the settings will be recalled, including the drive stage. To recall a preset on the computer, you can select it from the drop-down menu at the top left, or alternatively use the Preset Manager window. In this window, you can remove presets from Sono by dragging them to the trash icon, and drag and drop existing presets that are stored on your computer back onto Sono. It's worth noting that to save a preset onto Sono itself, you will need to make sure that the cab is actually saved onto Sono's internal memory. So before you save it, make sure that you press the Download to Device button or store the cab using the Cabinet Manager as discussed earlier. And that's all you really need to know in terms of using the Torpedo Remote software. As you can see, it's a nice and simple piece of software to use, but it's incredibly powerful in the ways that you can alter the sound and ultimately create something completely unique to you. For those wanting to use some of the more advanced features on Sono, such as advanced routing or the digital input, the Sono application is where you can make all of the necessary changes. Open the app by clicking the Sono icon in the application menu on your computer, then on a Mac click on the S logo that appears in the menu bar and select Show Mixer. On Windows you can find the S icon in your system tray and again select Show Mixer. By bringing up the mixer software, it will completely bypass the monitor mix knob and enter software controlled mixer mode, as now all of your routing will be controlled on the software. If you want to change back to using the monitor mix knob at any time, simply close the mixer window and click back on the S icon and then make sure you untick software controlled mixer mode. So quickly going through the different aspects of the software, you're able to see the different input channels, both analog and digital, along with the returns from your digital audio workstation. Adjusting the faders for each of these channels affects how much of each channel is sent to the monitoring mix, or in other words, what's coming out of your speakers or headphones. Using these you can adjust either the main mix, which is usually used for the main speaker playback, or the Q mix, which is normally used to send to the artist via headphones. In the master section, channel groups can be hidden using the channel view options. For example, if you're not using the digital input, you can hide those channels and keep your screen nice and clutter-free. You also have your typical monitor controls such as talkback, sum to mono, and phase invert. There is also individual mute controls for both the speaker and the headphone outputs. The system panel can be opened from the view menu and gives you control over more of the features. You can choose whether the optical input accepts an ADAT or an SPDIF signal. Below this is the clock section, allowing you to clock Sono from the optical input to keep your setup synced. Mono mode lets you choose the output which is used when sum to mono feature is enabled, and the dim control affects how much the speaker outputs are dimmed when talkback is enabled to avoid feedback. The routing matrix allows you to choose the audio source for the physical outputs. Main mix and Q mix are the two mixes which you can create in the Sono mixer, and DAW through allows you to send audio directly from the DAW to the outputs without any additional routing. Perfect for sending audio to outboard gear or external monitor controllers. Finally, you can select the Talkback Source. This can either be one of the inputs on Sono, or could be any other audio device connected to your computer, such as a USB mic or the built-in mic. For more information about any of these features in the Sono Mixer app or the Torpedo Remote app, please take a look at the Sono manual available on our website.